It's good to see everybody. First, I failed to mention this last week. Wanted to congratulate our women's cross country team on their conference championship, and Coach Gully and all the runners over there. Also, I had a good day yesterday. We had the INBC coaches meeting here, the youth coaches in this area. Several hundred came here to the Reynolds Center, and it was good to speak to them and be in front of them and the impact that they make in our community. I think we got such a responsibility here as the University of Tulsa to welcome everybody here, and it was great to have a lot of youth basketball coaches here in the building, and of course invite them all back, not just to the game this week, but all games coming up, and if anything that we can do for them in their team. Come off a nice home win. We saw some improvement in a number of areas on Saturday. Want to continue to take care of the basketball. Winning the turnover margin was a big part of that game. Still have some other things to clean up with some of our two-point field goal percentage defense, rebounding, and some other things that we just feel like we've got to be able to get better at as we continue to add and implement some different things to help put our guys in the best positions possible. Of course, we've got ORU Roberts here on Wednesday for the Mayor's Cup, and anytime you get a chance to play an in-state team or certainly a team from your same city, it creates a lot of interest. Of course, our main focus is just to continue to get better and better, but of course understand and recognize and are excited about the opportunity to play this type of game on Wednesday.
Questions for Coach?
Do you have to, I think we've asked this before, but do you talk about the significance of a game like this with your players, ORU specifically? I know there's not a lot of guys on the roster from this area, so is that something you have to talk about with them?
We do. We talk about, in fact, I'll ask today, just ask, because I really like the guys speaking in front of everybody, and I'll just ask them if there was a game in high school was there a school nearby their high school that game was just a little bit different. Of course, the court is still 94 feet, the basket is still 10 feet high, but everybody has come up in some type of game that was just a little bit different. And so we talk about those things and make sure that they understand that this is one of those games. No matter what position that team is in or whatever that might be, there's been some great games throughout history. When Ken Hayes was here and for Ken Hayes' Day in that first game, and just in talking, of course, he's got the perspective of having coached at ORU as well, but just talking about a number of those different types of games over the years, and it's fun. I think basketball in the state and playing against each other is a great thing.
You like the balance so far, scoring-wise, from your guys? I
do, and that was our hope. I mean, we've talked about strength in numbers. We talked about a multifaceted attack, not just inside and out, but across a number of different people. We had, the other night, 7 guys score. Know whose night it's going to be. Of course, we still have to take a look at in certain moments of where we want the ball to go, and some of that might be in different games based on the opponent, but we feel like we've got a lot of guys that can contribute.
You've mentioned a lot about the guys and adding muscle and changing physically. Do you like where your toughness is at right now so far through the first handful of games?
Yeah, I think we can continue to improve there. Specifically, and some of this is a technique, some of it is strategy, but we've got to guard the basketball better. We gave up 1.4 points per possession on 2-point field goals. It's just way too many. Some of them are offensive rebounds. We got to get tougher there. But some of them are just straight up guarding the basketball, not biting on fakes. There's a mental toughness to that. It's not just physical. We are stronger. I think that we're collectively bigger. We don't have a 7-footer roaming the paint, but I do like where our size is at, but we've got to become more disciplined in some of the things that we're doing, and we got to show more resistance to guard.
Is that typically the process where the mental aspect of that comes along after the physical side of it?
Absolutely. It's 4 times as great. Bobby Knight had the great quote that mental is the physical is 4 to 1, and we absolutely subscribe to that. and the guys have worked really hard physically. It's actually the easiest thing. It's the easiest and first level of commitment. The mental is the most challenging. Now, we're also taking a look at a couple different things. We've gone into this season with a particular view on some of the things we want to do defensively. Some of it has adjusted based on our personnel with having some guys out and starting the season off smaller. But we want to be a team that can be versatile and flexible, be a pitcher with a couple good pitches, and be able to find different ways to guard pick and roll, to be able to guard the post, and maybe even mix in a little bit of a zone and some other types of changes. But anytime that you change, it creates a little bit of thought, and we've got to keep building those habits so we're not thinking about it so much.
For a game like ORU, how do you best impart to, like I say, players who aren't from here necessarily, I guess that, Wichita, how fans feel about games like this as opposed to how players feel, and I guess how do you as a coach kind of try to balance those two things?
Yeah, I think it's like it is a balance, because you don't want to make anything seem greater than the importance of what it's going to take, and that's taking care of the basketball, taking good shots, guarding the ball well, and rebounding the ball. And no matter who you play, where you play, what time of day you play, that's what it's going to come down to. But I do think it's important. We spend a lot of time on history just in general. For example, we'll leading up to the beginning parts of the season, when there's, say, 10 days away from the first game, the guys will walk into a video session, and it'll be Dennis Rodman in a number 10 jersey. So we try to impart history of the game, but also try to educate them on the history of our school, the history of the longest rivalries, the importance of being one of just 4 Division I teams in this entire state that play basketball. Some guys are from states that might have 20 teams. It's just different. So we absolutely talk about those types of things, but not to put any additional pressure on anything other than this is what it's going to take to be successful in this particular game. But absolutely that there's a little bit of significance. We're playing for something. There is a Mayor's Cup. I'm not going to ignore that and say this is just any other game. In fact, this is fun. This is what you want to do. You want to be playing for something a little bit extra.
What is your relationship with the ORU basketball program?
Well,
and what do you think the relationship between Tulsa and ORU should be just in general? I mean, is it kind of do you compete some? Do you hand in hand try to lift each other up because you're in the same town doing the same type of thing? How much contact do you have with them?
Yeah, we have some contact with them when we cross paths a good bit, either in recruiting or just in circles around town. Number one, I absolutely lock arms with them, OSU and OU, as caretakers of basketball in this state. We have an NBA team. We have 4 Division I teams. We each have a responsibility to work together to promote basketball and help the young people in this state, in the game, outside the game, any way we can. But of course, we're going to compete against all of them. And we're playing 2 of those schools this year. And I think that's healthy. I think that's a good thing. Regardless of conference affiliation and all those types of things, I believe that we should play. We should try to figure it out how to play. Those variables have gotten harder. I think there's a good chance that we go from 18 league games to 20 next year. Other leagues are up to 20. Like, scheduling is changing, but I would love to be in a position where we're playing in-state teams all the time, and absolutely, lock arms in certain aspects of our position in the state, but we're going to compete like crazy every other time.
They have the Summit preseason player of the year, and Isaac McBride, a guy that you've seen for a couple of years now. What does he do well, and how do you go about trying to slow him down?
That's a great question, Spencer. He's a really good player. I got great respect for him. Remember watching him in high school. He's a guy that he's got a lot of wiggle. He's strong. He can create for himself. He can create for others. He can go left and right. Sometimes you look at a guy and say, hey, we really need to force him in this one direction because the percentages drop. He's not really one of those guys, but he's got a twitchiness about him where he can pull from range or get to the basket and get fouled. So I've always believed that any steady dose of anything against a good scorer, they're going to start to time it up and figure it out. And so we've got to be able to find a way to keep him off balance, but at the same time, not put him in a position where he's making everybody else so much better. But he is a good player, and absolutely, no matter who he plays or their team plays this year, he's going to be the first guy talked about.
Wanted to talk a little bit about the growth that Reed had from year 1 to 2. It seems like he really attacked the offseason and got in pretty good shape. And last game they were trying to attack him in the mid-post a lot, and he was still able to kind of move his feet against some smaller forwards and stuff. How more versatile does that make you as a defense when he's not necessarily having to be purely an anchor at the bottom where he can step out a little bit and being able to play against kind of different lineups?
I'm really proud of Matt. And you talk about that physical commitment mentioned earlier. He really attacked the offseason. Now, he improved as the season went on, but the beautiful thing about going from being a freshman to a sophomore is having an understanding of, okay, this is what's coming, rather than just being reactive to it as it's happening as a freshman. His explosiveness, his stamina, his quickness, all those things have improved dramatically. He's lost about 30 pounds overall, but 20 since the end of last season. He lost about 10 pounds last year. But his and then just his experience and maturity level, like he sees things happening a little bit earlier. We feel like as we progress, we could maybe play with 2 bigger guys, him and Schmeichel together. Amadi's he's getting healthy. Garcia, when his time comes, just because Matt has put himself in a position to be able to guard multiple people.
Team's shooting almost 50% against you guys. At least looks. Yeah. Is it? You guys are doing a good job turning teams over too, though. So what's the balance of guarding? Is it maybe guarding aggressively? I'm not sure where you would find the balance there or draw the line. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's 2 things. I mean, the last game, you look at the box score, it can tell you some different things. And if you hadn't watched the game, you might have a visual that we were a full court pressing team and just trying to turn people over, and they were able to get by us for layups when they scored. And it wasn't the case. But we won the turnover margin by 13. That's significant. If anything more than 4 is excellent. And so that helped us get a lot more shots. We actually attacked the offensive glass really well, the best that we've done in a while. That was significant. However, we really need to improve on-ball penetration to the paint. They were able to get to the box area on offensive rebounds. They were able to get there after a few, even though we turned it over just 7 times, 3 of those times they were able to ignite and get right up the floor and get to the box and score layups. We've got to be able to take that away. When they got shots, especially 8 feet and in, they were much more successful than I'd like them to be. So that's something that we'd want to address. To Pop's question earlier about toughness, we got to get tougher on the basketball.
I think you maybe have given us a number before. I don't remember, but you're at 34 threes a game right now. Is that a number you like? Does it need to be bigger, smaller? I know it depends on the shots you're taking too, but
yeah, it's interesting. We've talked about, is there a number, and every game's a little bit different. I mean, I think we're typically a fairly quicker team in pace. We'd like to be opportunistic offensively. We'd like to be stingier defensively. So pace is a little bit relative. We just want to take open shots. And we only took 2 shots out of the box. In the box, if you look on the court, there's these 2 little hashes on the baseline. It goes straight up to the first stall of the lane line. We only took 2 2-point field goals outside of that. And so this doesn't mean that we'll never take mid-range shots, but we really want to attack the basket. We got to the foul line. We made our first 18, which was great. We cooled off after that. But if there's open threes for our best shooters, we want to take them.